forward so I don't forget. So welcome, thank you for joining us for the final session in our Volunteers Week Festival. So this session is going to take a focus on Shared Interest Foundation, and so I'm delighted to hand you over to my colleague Harriet, who's going to take us through, and I'm just going to start your slides for you now, Harriet.
Thanks, Sally, and hi everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for choosing to join us again. It's nice to see some familiar faces and some new faces as well. So as Sally mentioned, the focus of this session is on Shared Interest Foundation, with particular focus on one of our most recently completed projects in Uganda. Next slide, please. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with Shared Interest Foundation and the work we do, but just to give a little bit of an overview for anyone who may be new. So the foundation is the charitable arm of the society. So we work to deliver social impact projects across Africa and South America. So these are some examples are at the community level. We have worked in Burkina Faso to help establish beekeeping enterprises as a means for women to earn an income. But we also work with some large cooperatives to help them improve their governance, their finance, so in turn they can better meet the needs of the members that they support. So the majority of our projects are delivered across Africa, but we are working to increase our presence in South America. And a number of our projects, like the project I'll be talking about today, is delivered in partnership with a customer of the society. So you may be familiar with some of the names that we talk about. So the main focus of our work is really about building sustainable businesses. And then other themes that we see as key to enabling that to happen successfully is to support producers to increase climate resilience, try and mitigate the impact of climate change, enterprise development, income diversification, and also empowering women and youth. So these are just a bit of a snapshot on the screen of some of our current projects. If you would like to read more about any of these projects, you can have a look through our annual review, which is available on our website, which has more details on all of these inside. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the focus of today's presentation is on our project snappily titled Strengthening the Resilience of Coffee Farmers in Uganda Through Passion Fruit Production. And so this is a project that we delivered over 2 years, funded by a grant from the Money Trust, who are a UK-based funder. And the focus of this project was to support 365 coffee farmers who are all members of coffee cooperative Bukonzo through income diversification and improved farming practices. So the main activities concluded in April just gone. However, we are conducting an end evaluation at the 6-month point in time, which will be around September, October. Next slide, please. So just to give an introduction to the delivery partner, they are a society customer, so you may be familiar with the name Bukonzo. They are an organic coffee cooperative based in Uganda, and they have 3,000 members, 42% of whom are women. So they are located close to the Rwenzori mountain range and the border with the Democratic Republic of Congo. So whilst this environment, it's very mountainous, whilst this environment is great for growing coffee, it is also very exposed to the weather and to climate. And the farmers are particularly vulnerable to heavy rainfall and flooding, which can wash out the topsoil. You can kind of see from the image there that it is very mountainous, and the coffee farms are built onto terraces on the side of the mountain, which does leave them very exposed and vulnerable to extreme weather. Next slide, please. So this project that we delivered sought to address 4 key problems. So the first one was low coffee yield, and this So this was low coffee yield of the farmers, which in turn impacted upon their household income. And so this was as a result of a number of factors. We worked with Bukonzo to establish that coffee capacity or coffee production was 40% below its capacity. And we found out that there was only one training officer for every 10,000 farmers, which meant that many farmers had never had access to formal training, and so were unknowingly implementing poor farming techniques, which in turn resulted in the low yield. So the second problem we wanted to try and address was the reliance on a single source of income, and that source of income was coffee. And so because of this, and because of the farmers' need to have income, it was often that they would pick their coffee before the cherries were fully mature, which would in turn affect the income that they could earn from the sale of those cherries, and also mean that Bukonzo had less volume that they could process, and so in turn impacted upon the sales of Bukonzo. The third problem was the limited availability of financial services and support. So this was support services which would enable the farmers to manage their finances appropriately, to be able to budget, to be able to keep records, and they didn't have access to services to enable them to save either, which would enable them to then reinvest into their coffee business. And then the fourth problem that we sought to address was the limited capacity of Bukonzo to support their members. So we worked with Bukonzo to identify some areas where they felt that they would benefit from some additional training and support. So before we launched the project, we conducted a baseline assessment. So this was a survey that was completed by all 365 farmers to help us really understand their individual needs, the challenges that they were facing, and to be sure that the activities that we intended to deliver would best meet these needs. So I've pulled out just a few kind of statistics that came through from that baseline. So on average, each farmer earned £11.70 a month from the sale of coffee, and they were responsible for, on average, 7 family members. 56% told us that this income is never sufficient to enable them to meet their basic needs. 95% reported having no access to inputs, including organic fertiliser. And 100% of farmers told us that they have been negatively impacted by climate change, but only 3% had knowledge in climate smart agriculture practices, so that they would be methods that they could implement to increase their climate resilience. Next slide, please. So I'm now just going to cover some of the key activities that we delivered through this project to help meet some of these challenges identified. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the first was about income diversification. And so the farmers themselves identified that they would like to go into passion fruit production. Some had already tried it, but due to not having proper training or access to inputs and tools, they were unsuccessful with that. But the climate where Bukonzo is based is really suitable for growing passion fruits, and there is a high demand both within Uganda and from neighbouring countries for this fruit. So this was identified as being a suitable and sustainable income diversification activity. So to help the farmers go into this new practice, we developed 2 seed beds. So these were constructed at central locations, so easily accessible for the farmers. And the seed beds then became a nursery for the passion fruit seedlings before they were transferred to the farmers to plant on their coffee farms among their coffee trees. So we also recruited 2 nursery attendants to support with the establishment and management of these seed beds, and over 18,500 climate and disease resistant passion fruit seeds were planted. Next slide, please. So obviously, to go alongside the actual seedlings, we needed to be sure that the farmers had access to the training that they would need to be able to grow this product successfully. So we worked with an agricultural officer from the local government department to deliver training in passion fruit production. And this was also attended by the project coordinator, who is an extension officer at Bukonzo, to ensure that the knowledge that was delivered would also be retained within Bukonzo, so that they in turn could deliver the training themselves to more of their members. And that was a key sustainability element of this project. So the training was both practical and theoretical and covered topics including soil preparation, development of the trellis that the passion fruits needed to grow, and pruning, and pest and disease control. So following the training, the passion fruit plants were distributed to the farmers. Each farmer received 50 passion fruit plants to plant on their coffee farm. And they were taught during the training how to construct a simple trellis along which the fruits would grow. And the project coordinator was also able to provide additional kind of follow-on support to be sure that they were implementing the techniques correctly. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so to go alongside that training to provide some additional support with coffee production, we again worked with agronomists from a local organisation called Rural Family Care to deliver workshops in good agricultural practices, climate smart agriculture, and also provided their farmers with an assortment of new tools. So this training covered topics including coffee pruning, soil conservation, pest management, and group action planning, and was again delivered through practical demonstrations and theoretical teaching. And some of the tools and equipment that the farmers received included pruning saws, wheelbarrows, and sprayers for the application of organic fertiliser. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, from the baseline study, only 5% of farmers told us that they had access to organic fertiliser. So we knew that providing them with the skills and resources to produce their own organic fertiliser would be key to the success of both their coffee and their passion fruit production. So the farmers were taught how to make 3 different types of fertiliser. The first is a unique liquid fertiliser, which was made using locally available materials, including animal manure, charcoal dust, wood ash, and water. Local green plants were added to provide additional nutrients, and a natural enzyme was also added to speed up the rate of decomposition. And this took the decomposition down from 90 days to 21 days. And the training covered both the production and the application of this fertiliser. And then the farmers were also taught how to produce organic fertiliser using a technique called basket composting, which is shown in the second 2 images there. So they were taught how to weave baskets using vines and sticks, and then these were placed among their coffee trees on the coffee farm. And in the baskets, they put soft grasses, dry grasses, animal manure, wood ash, and water. After 14 days, these materials decomposed to produce the compost. But due to the positioning of the baskets, it's actually the roots of the coffee trees that find their way to the baskets from the underside and access the compost. And by keeping the compost contained in these woven baskets, it keeps it protected from being damaged by chickens and other small animals. Next slide, please. Thank you. So then another activity that we delivered was working with, again, the local organisation Rural Family Care to deliver agribusiness training and village saving and loan association management training. So as part of this, 105 farmers were trained in savings group management and record keeping. So the farmers were divided so that the 365 total farmers were divided into smaller groups. And each farmer group elected leaders who would be responsible for keeping the records of their savings group. And we know now that each farmer is saving weekly. And so this money that they are pooling together is accruing, and they have already been able to make some withdrawals with a very small interest rate to be able to purchase new tools or purchase inputs to support their farms. Next slide, please. And then we also worked with Bukonzo themselves, as I mentioned, to identify some areas where they felt like they needed some additional support to enable them to better meet their producers. So they received training in business skills, and then also in a topic called farming as a family business. And this is something that they were trained at the management level so that they could then deliver the training to their farmers. And this is basically about changing the mindset of farming to view it not just as a kind of means to earn a bit of income at day to day, but also to view it as a business themselves, and to help identify that within the family, within maybe the husband and wife team, who may have different skills that may be better suited to different areas of this farming business. So this is a training that Bukonzo have now started to deliver to their members themselves. Next slide, please. So the next couple of slides, we'll just be talking about some of the initial impact that we have seen from this project. So I mentioned that in September, October time, we will be conducting an external evaluation of the project. And from that, we hope to have some real hard impact data. But this is just some of the kind of initial impact data that we have received from our project partner. Next slide, please. And so following the first harvest of passion fruits, which concluded at the start of this year, we were told that 2.78 million passion fruits were harvested, and the farmers made total sales of £61,000, which is an average of £167 per farmer. This is a real significant achievement for this producer group, and we know that there's a lot of interest from other farmers at Bukonzo in engaging in this activity. So Bukonzo have been key in connecting the farmers with the buyers, and they are hoping now that they've had their first harvest and they can kind of evidence the quality of the product, that they will be able to secure some contracts with buyers, predominantly in the capital city, Kampala, who will buy the passion fruits from the next harvest. Next slide, please. And so this is just a little story of Baluku. So he is a 40-year-old farmer. He has 7 children. He's been a farmer for the past 10 years and has a 1-acre coffee farm. On this farm, he also grows beans, cassava, banana, and cabbages. And he told us that he's been farming for 10 years, but his yield has never exceeded 70 kilograms per harvest season. Before this project, he only had a cutlass and a hoe to manage his farm. And using a cutlass for pruning a coffee tree can actually damage the tree and affect its ability to produce more cherries. But through this project, he received a bow saw, pruning shears, spraying machine, a spade, and a sickle. And these tools have made a big difference in his farm. And when our foundation manager actually visited the farm, he commented how healthy the trees were looking, how clean and tidy the farm looked when compared with other neighbouring farms or farmers who were not participating in this project. And Baluku said that after the training he received from Bukonzo, he put everything into practice, and for the first time his coffee yield has gone up to 150 kilograms. So previously his income per harvest was 70,000 Ugandan shillings, but has now gone up to 300,000 Ugandan shillings. Next slide, please. This is just a very short video, again, which just shows one of our project participants, Joel, but it's just quite nice, I think, to kind of show a bit more of the environment where they are based and give a bit more context to that.
amena ni Joel Njike ngali mulimi ow'omwani na matunda. Ngamatonze mu matunda mu myaka 5, mu bulimi bw'omwani ngamatonze mu myaka 10, nganawithe omukali mughuma n'abana 5 ab'obulhume 4 n'ow'obukali mughuma. Nganathunga n'embene. E-cooperative yayi ningiramu 2011. Ngatsuka eringiramu neryo e-cooperative yayi yikangwathikaya eribya inangana n'othoni thwayi neryo inayathulya okwa beyi eyiwene. Neryo nene inathunga akasente kiwene ingye ng'omulimi. Ekyakandi e-cooperative yayi bakahulayu obo e-cooperative bakethayu Burangwa. Eryowero lyayi bakethamu mwa Nyamusule COU kwamazi. Neryo kandi e-cooperative yayi eyo yabirithuwathikya eribya inangana eryongera obulimi bw'obutunda bibiri ebanemukolayo. Neryo e-cooperative eyi yabirithuwathikya eriletha akabizinesi ak'omwani. Neryo ekyathukawobamu ekinene kutsibu thukaghulaya okwa kathalhi akiwene. Babirithuletera akathalhi akiwene thunimulengesya eribya thukayisyaniramuyo. Then ekyakabiri babirithuletera obutunda. Nabu twabiribulhwa kw'embuthu ithukanabanayo. Neryo ibwana nayo babirithuwathikya erilhukolha ekindu ekyo. Ebikulhu kutsibu ebikaleka inasima e-cooperative y'ebyo.
And so just to kind of wrap up the presentation, just to talk about some of the ongoing activities. So we were really delighted to hear from our project partner that the farmers have actually started to self-finance the establishment of some seed beds. So they have developed 12 more seed beds at each of their different coffee washing stations, and planted 3,000 passion fruit seedlings. So these were taken from some of the fruits that they had grown. So they were able to use some of those seeds to plant more seedlings. So these will be shared among the coffee farmers to plant on their coffee farms over the next few weeks. The groups are continuing to save as part of their village savings and loan savings groups. And we know that they are continuing the production of organic fertiliser, which is benefiting both their passion fruits and their coffee farms. Next slide, please. And so that concludes this presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Brilliant.
Yes, Susan.
Excellent. And it's so helpful to see how it's across the board, to see from training to equipping and the compost. I thought, well, that's something that in some way we could be doing ourselves in our gardens, directly feeding the roots. Mine just feeds one bed where it's sat for years, and I don't think it's ever been used for anything. But no, that was really helpful and interesting. Just wondering now, are there more farmers that are wanting to have similar, and how does the ongoing training work?
Yeah, so we have been assured by Bukonzo that there are many farmers. So as I said, Bukonzo has a membership of 3,000, which are split into 11 primary societies. So this project worked with 2 of those primary societies, but we know that there are farmers from all of the others who are very keen, particularly as I think word of mouth travels quite fast. They've heard of the success of this passion fruit. So we know that there are many more who would like to engage in this activity. So what we hope we have done is equip Bukonzo internally with some of the skills in the passion fruit production technique that they will be able to deliver some training to their other members. And we've seen before how the farmers have taken it upon themselves to set up their own seed beds. So we hope that although we will look for kind of continued financial support to be able to deliver a project on this scale again, but until then, we hope that Bukonzo have now got the internal skills within the organisation to support some of their members who may be particularly interested in going into this.
That's wonderful, very positive. Is it dependent on more funding from the foundation, not at all?
So this project was funded by an external partner, an external funder. So we submitted an application to them, and we're happy to be successful with that. So we are looking again to do that, to support, to secure some external funding for that. And then Bukonzo again may deliver some sort of internal in-house training as well. Susan Jones, yes.
I was just wondering, was the co-op formed before you got involved, or were you instrumental in getting the co-op set up?
No, so do you mean before this project or before?
Well,
this?
Yes. The co-op already existed, did it?
Yes, yeah. So the cooperative has been a customer of the society, I think, since about 2014. I don't have the exact date to hand. So they've been quite a long-standing customer of the society, but it's only in the past couple of years that at the foundation we have started to work with them.
No, I think the cooperative sort of way of doing things is very helpful to, well, people in this country and as well as people in developing countries to get the community together to share stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and they're perfectly placed to understand the challenges affecting their producers, and also what we can do to kind of mitigate and support those producers.
I'm hoping this will be really interesting to a group of young people from my church who've been to Uganda a couple of times, clearly a different area, but that it will inspire them to really link with Fairtrade and shared interest, perhaps. So yeah, I'm hoping to use the recording once it's available. Thanks.
No, definitely. And there's a couple more video clips. I just showed one. I think we have 4 different ones. So I can certainly share those with you as well. But if there's any kind of additional information, feel free to reach out. Catherine? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I've just remembered I need to. I was just wondering what the transport links are like, and for actually transporting their coffee and their passion fruit once it's been produced. Do they have training in using the best method of transport, for example?
Yeah, what I'm actually going to do is bring in our foundation manager, Kodzo, because he actually visited the project. So he, I think, can give some first-hand comments on transport links and also the challenges of working at such high altitude.
Yeah, thank you, Harriet, and thank you for your question. If you look at the topography of the land where Bukonzo is located, it is a very difficult area for the farmers. In fact, I have to spend close to 3 hours climbing the mountain to get to the top to visit the passion fruit farms. So there are no road for cars or vehicle actually to drive on. It's very rocky and difficult actually to even construct a road across those mountains. So farmers will spend over an hour or 2 to get to the farm, another 2 hours to get back home. So they are working in a very difficult condition in that region, producing the fruits and the coffee that we drink. In fact, when I returned from the farm, in fact, I had a difficult night because all my body was really aching me because of the long climb. So what they do is that they do walk and carry the coffee on their head from the farm down to the village or to the coffee washing stations, which is really a very difficult and Herculean task for them. unfortunately. Thank you.
Did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, so I was interested in that because another organisation that I support, Practical Action, has similar issues in Nepal, for example, where they introduced gravity ropeways. So it's a fairly low technology solution to a similar problem, where they have very mountainous terrain and heavy goods that they're trying to get to market. So the gravity goods ropeways just uses something like water or rocks to actually go down when something's going up, and then the other way around if they need to transport or produce down to the bottom of the valley. So I'm just wondering whether there might be some cooperation with Practical Action over applying what's needed in this setting. Just a thought.
No, I think it's a really interesting point, and it's definitely something to speak to Bukonzo about and see if they themselves have kind of thought about any methods to kind of just make the life of the farmer a little bit easier. No, it's an interesting point, and it's something we've looked at actually in Peru with the Inca moss, sphagnum moss production, where at the foundation we supported them to implement a winch system, which again just meant that they didn't have to manually carry the moss down the mountain, but it could travel across on the winch. So no, it's a good point and something we'll definitely follow up and look into a bit more. Can't see any other hands up, so I think Sally will probably.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Harriet, and Kodzo, and to you all.
Susan.
Susan, you've just jumped in there, yeah?
I was trying to give other people a chance for a chance. But it just strikes me as how much input and how much has been achieved. And I just wondered if you could give any idea of the sort of financial implications to providing this to these two groups, because it sounds as though it's done tremendous work for them. But I just wondered on the other side, how much had it actually cost to do it? Because it just sounded so brilliant.
Yeah, so I mean, this passion fruit project, as I mentioned, was a grant from the Marmoning Trust over 2 years, and it was around £40,000, I think, off the top of my head, that we secured for that. And then that includes things like the evaluation and other associated costs, but that was for all of the main activities that I discussed during this presentation. So
it is quite a significant amount.
It is, it's one of our larger projects over 2 years, but it did support 365 farmers. Yes. So in terms of kind of value for money, I guess, it's definitely been a really successful project for us. Yeah,
certainly sounds it. Thank you. That's brilliant to help us get it into a perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susan. As you say, that does help put things into perspective, I think. But as Harriet's shown, it's certainly having an impact, which is great. Well, thank you again, Harriet. That was a great way to close our festival for this year. So thank you, and thank you all for joining this afternoon, and indeed for joining any of the other sessions that you have joined. As many of you are aware, we have been recording these sessions, and we will communicate when those recordings become available, so that you can share them and be reminded perhaps of any links or connections or things that you were hopefully inspired by through any of them. When we share those, we will also share some of the links and video clips and things that have been referenced. We're aware that sometimes those haven't worked in some of the previous presentations, so we want to make sure that those are available to you as well. If you do have any questions, either from this session or from any of the other sessions that you've joined, do get in touch with us. Just drop us an email, and we'll do our best to get responses from whoever was presenting that session and get back to you with those. We'll also be sharing a quick feedback form for you as well, just to give us a bit of understanding on how we do this sort of thing in the future as well. So we appreciate your responses to that when it drops into your inbox. So yeah, thank you all very much. It's been great to be with you over the last few days, and we hope that you've found some benefit from them. So thank you.